Hello, hi, and welcome all of you. So, here we are again solving with you CLAT 2021 paper and English section to be precise of this paper. So, let's start with the analysis and with the question of the passage that was there in the CLAT 2021 paper. So, this was the first passage that was about that was an extract from A Scandal in Bohemia by Arthur Conan Doyle. So this was an extract, but this whole passage was basically about comparing the attributes, about comparing the qualities various detective has while solving the case they has in their hand. So this was that in this particular passage. Let's read this passage. Basically, this passage is in case you know what you don't know what is fictional and non-fictional. Let me just tell you, those passages who has facts, who has figures, who are derived from the sources derived from the factual sources, basically whether it is from newspaper, whether it is from any journal or research article, they are called as factual or non-fictional passages. And those passages who are basically derived from any type of novel, any type of stories, any type of abstract, they are called as fictional passage. So coming to this particular passage, this passage is a fictional kind of passage. Basically, in this particular passage, in this particular paper also, there were 6 passages, each were followed by 5 set of questions. So now let's start with the first passage that was there in this paper. So I rang the doorbell and was shown up to the chamber which had formerly been party my own. When it is said by party my own, it means I was also there in that particular apartment, or I was also there one of its owner. I was also one of its owner. Party my own, it means it was partly my own. With hardly a word spoken, Sherlock Holmes waved me to an armchair. Then he stood before the fire and looked me over his singular introspective fashion. Watson, you did not tell me that you intended to go into harness. It means you did not told me that you intended to go into the harness. Simply means that you haven't informed me that you were going into trouble, that you are into some trouble, that you are going into harness. It means that you are into some trouble. Then how did you know? Then Watson asked him back that, then how did you know if I haven't told you? Now I see it, I deduce it. How do I know that you have been getting yourself very wet lately and that you have a most clumsy and careless servant girl? It means that Sherlock Holmes was saying that you were getting up very wet lately. It means you were into the rains, you were into the areas that has rainfalls, and that you have a most clumsy and careless servant girl. And it means that you also have a slave, a servant girl that is very much clumsy and careless. My dear Holmes, said I, this is too much. It is true that I had a country walk on Thursday and came home in a dreadful mess, but I have changed my clothes. I can't imagine how did you deduce it. So he is saying that I have changed my clothes, I have changed my appearance, and how could you deduce that I was there in the rain? So as to Mary Jane, she is incorrigible. It means she is very much clumsy, and there again I fail to see how you work it out. और उसके बाद भी, yes, I accept that she is incorrigible, but then how do you know this thing? It's simplicity itself. My eyes tell me that on the inside of your left shoe, look how careful he is while just deducing, while just inspecting or investigating. Just where the file extracts it, the leather is scored by 6 almost parallel cuts. Scored means they are cut, or the cut is being made there by 6 almost parallel scores. Obviously, they have been caused by someone who has very carelessly scared around the edges of the sole in order to remove the crusted mud for it. So it means that since he was in rainfall, though it might have happened that the mud has stuck to his shoes, and then in order to remove that crusted mud, she might have scared around the edges of the sole. So that she would have removed this, but that's why she has removed this crusted mud from his foot. Hence you see my double detection. You had been out in wild weather, and that you had a particularly malignant boot slitting specimen of the London slavery. Specimen means example. What does specimen means? Example. In fiction, as detectives like Holmes are usually portrayed as people with exceptionally brilliant mind, they possess the rare skill to analyze what ordinary people can't. They have incredible abilities to infer, deduce, induce, and conclude. Similar example was then given by the author of G.K. Chesterton fictional Catholic priest Father Brown, who relies on extraordinary power of sympathy and empathy that enable him to imagine and feel as criminals do. It means Father Brown used the technique of sympathy and empathy of how the criminals would feel, or what drives the criminal for a particular crime. He explains, I had thought out exactly how a thing like that could be done, in what style or state of mind could really do it. And when I was quite sure that I felt exactly like those murderers myself, of course I knew who he was doing. So he says that Father Brown usually feels or imagines himself like he is the criminal, and at that time he could just deduce that who could be the criminal. Now Sherlock finds the criminal by starting from outside. He relies on science, experimental methods, and deduction. On the contrary, Father Brown uses varied psychological experience learned from those who make confessions of crime. Confession means when you just tell about some crime that you have done by yourself. That is called as confession. The mistake, the errors that you have made, the mistakes that you have made, when you are just acknowledging that mistake to someone else, that it is called as confession. He relies on introspection, intuition, and empathy. There is yet another set of detectives like those created by writers like Agatha Christie. Her Belgian detective Hercule Poirot is a storyteller who draws information from the stories that others tell. He patiently listens to numerous accounts of what has happened, where it happened, how it happened. He listens for credibility and ambiguity. It means he listens for credibility, that whether the persons who are saying so many things, whether it is credible or not. If one person is saying the same thing, second is also saying the same thing, third is also saying the same thing, it means that particular information is credible. And ambiguity means if one person is just informing about something, second person is informing about that same thing but in different order, and third person is also explaining or saying about the same thing but totally different from what other two have said, then it is called as ambiguity. So he identifies why and how the pieces of jigsaw don't fit together. Ultimately he uncovers the truth. So from the passage, so basically it was just comparing the abilities of all these three detectives and what are the techniques that these detectives use in order to solve any case. Now from the passage it can be inferred that Watson is Holmes' mentor. Could be there. Earlier Watson used to live with Holmes. Very much prominent answer. Watson is a detective. Could not be inferred. Watson shares all his personal matter with the Holmes. If he would have shared all the personal matter with Holmes, then Holmes would have not told that you haven't told me that you have been in a wild weather recently. So the correct answer to this question is option B. Earlier Watson used to live with Holmes because it has said it was partly my own. Next question, it is evident from solving cases Father Brown relies largely on. Father Brown किस पे rely करते थे? His own sympathetic and empathetic thought process about criminal. Could be there. A sympathetic approach towards various people's opinions on the case to be solved, a deductive analysis of crime, and his ability to sympathize, and D, all of the above. So the correct answer is his own sympathetic and empathetic thought process about criminal. That what drives him solve the case. Next question, what does the next question say is, for the three detectives mentioned in the passage, which one would be non-essential for solving criminal case? इनमें से कौन सी ऐसी चीज है जो criminal case को solve करने के लिए जरूरी नहीं है? Option A, forgiving nature, sensitivity, critical thinking और patience. So यहाँ पर correct answer क्या है? फॉर थर्ड क्वेश्चन, जब हम बात कर रहे हैं सेंसिटिविटी की, तो सेंसिटिविटी वाली चीज़ कौन यूज़ करता था? फादर ब्राउन. क्रिटिकल थिंकिंग एंड पेशेंस, these were the things both of the all those three detectives were using. So the correct answer is option A. Forgiving nature is not essential for solving criminal cases. Next question, in order to solve the cases, Poirot uses the art of what? The narratives that has been told, building a fantasy based on empathizing with all the characters. This was the attribute of Father Brown. Creating new plots for, this was also not there. Detecting and analyzing the missing links in the narrative that has been told. This is the correct answer. He usually not build a fantasy. कोई fantasy वो नहीं बनाता था. He usually try to just look for the credibility and ambiguity of the information and then try to just join the jigsaw puzzle to solve the jigsaw puzzle and detect and analyze the missing links that were there in them. Next question, the fifth question of the passage, the word incorrigible means. Incorrigible का मतलब क्या होता है? Option A, habitual. No. Option B, unperformable. No. Option C, repentant. Could be the answer. Option D, incurable. No. So the correct answer to this question is option C, that is repentant. Coming to the next passage that follows. Next passage says, since long we have witnessed unimaginable levels of success and failures of various projects. So this particular passage is about the planning, strategy and execution, and the discussion whether the planning is whether planning should have the priority, execution should have the priority, or strategy should have the priority. So let's read what the passage says. Success and failure of various projects, businesses, scientific missions and even wars. From such triumphs and defeats emerges the much debatable thought, is planning and strategy more important than execution? Look what I have said, it is just discussing about planning, strategy and execution. Now some project leaders and their team are of the view that planning leads to clarity of objectives. Some of them think that planning leads to clarity of objectives. It helps to set the timeline, the deadline, the budget. Consequently, when the planning is haphazard means unclear. The planning is unclear and unstructured, the very aims becomes hazy. This further leads to unprecedented budget collapses, never thought of budget collapses, that our budget could collapse. We have never thought about it because we haven't planned about it. And poor time management. In some cases, teams have worked relentlessly. It means relentlessly means continuously to complete assignment, but poor planning has invariably led to customer dissatisfaction and at times a complete collapse of the entire project. In the words of Benjamin Franklin, failing to plan is planning to fail. Numerous entrepreneurs have faith that strategy. So till here it was the importance of planning. And Benjamin Franklin is just vouching or just asserting the importance of planning. Now comes the importance of strategy. From here it is about this importance of strategy, in which it is saying numerous entrepreneurs have the faith that strategy helps to enhance not only the speed and quality of production but also the consumer satisfaction. If there are strategies to tackle unplanned events and unexpected interruptions, there is a possibility of entire projects coming to a grinding halt. So यहाँ पर ये क्या कह रहा है? It is saying that if there are no strategies to tackle anything that is unprecedented or unplanned, then everything or a project may come to a grinding halt. Grinding halt means for a pause of long time. Now some of the words: best airports, bridges, astronomical missions are the result of careful planning and excellent strategies. However, there are some architects, artists and entrepreneurs who prefer to dive straight from the board into the ideas of pool of execution. Now comes the importance of execution basically. Now it is about execution. So it is saying that there are some artists who just try to, from planning, they just try to execute it. So they believe suitable strategies are best shaped during the process of execution. When we will execute, then the strategies could be shaped automatically. Great plans and strategies can fail while encountering unexpected situation. Many plans and strategies might fail when we will encounter unexpected situations. Steve Jobs says, "To me, ideas are worth nothing less executed, are nothing unless executed. They are just multiplier. Execution is worth millions." So Steve Jobs is saying that to me, ideas are very much important. To me, ideas are not that much important. Execution is more important from my point of view. So Steve Jobs is saying that execution is very important. Bill Gates is Franklin is saying that planning is very important, and then comes Bill Gates, who says, according to Bill Gates, unhappy customers are the greatest source of learning. Fickle-minded consumers and wavering market trends. Fickle-minded simply means moody consumers who change their mind very quickly. They are called as fickle-minded. So fickle-minded consumers and wavering market trends. Wavering means the inconsistent market trends can mar projects. Mar means spoil. Can mar projects. Mar means spoil, hamper. It's called as mar projects that stand on fixed plans. It is a need-based, flexible and innovative strategies that help to withstand the impact of these vacillating desires. These vacillating means these continuously flickering desires and trends. So basically Bill Gates says that sometimes strategies also fail, sometimes planning also fail, execution also fail. Only innovative strategies help us to withstand these vacillating desires. After rigorous planning and testing, a new recipe on 2 lakh customers a new recipe was tested on 2 lakh customers in 1985. The company Coke bought a new Coke, much to the company's dismay. Dismay means sadness. Much to the company's dismay, the product did not take off as expected, and the financial losses was enormous. It means that they have had huge financial losses. The company realized that during the process of data collection, it had not considered the product loyalty and old-fashioned habits of the consumers. It means they had not just relied, or they have not just took care of that. There are possibilities that there must be some adherence to some particular product. There must be some adherence to some of the traditional things that people usually used to use. So that is why they have failed off, their product has failed off, and hence the balance of pragmatic planning. Pragmatic means practical planning, effective strategy and efficient execution is likely to ensure the accomplishment of tasks at each stage of the project. It means all these three are important: planning, execution and strategies. All these three are important in order to accomplish the task in project, and successful execution is also not an easy journey. The road is winding and bumpy. It may require tweaking, or at other times abandoning the original plan and redesigning it. Often we turn to nature for inspiration. Think plans and strategies are the seed. So it is comparing plans and strategies with that of seed. Execution is the nourishment. Execution is now the nourishment, and consumer is the capricious weather, or consumer is the capricious weather. So all these three elements of accomplished products is being compared with that of a tree, basically, or how a tree is grown, how a tree or how a seed is developed. That is very well compared with that of the execution, planning and strategy. So we can say analogy is being used here, since it is comparing plans and strategy with that of the seed, execution with that of the nourishment, and consumer with that of the capricious weather. Again, capricious means not constant, unconstant. So this was the passage. Now follows the question. The passage can be best termed as. Passage को हम किस तरह से term कर सकते हैं? Whether it is expository, whether it is descriptive, whether it is abstract, whether it is narrative. Was it narrative? Nahi, it wasn't narrative. Was it abstract? No, it wasn't abstract. What is descriptive? Kind of descriptive, but it was more or less, there were facts and figures. That's why we can say that it was an expository kind of passage basically. Coming to the next question that follows. What is the author's main purpose? So author's main purpose is to highlight, to suggest people succeed only when they have great strategies. No. Highlight the fact execution is as indispensable as planning and strategy. Correct. Indispensable means inseparable. As planning and strategy. Illustrate impact of poor planning. No. Highlighting hurdles that come in the way of execution. No. Correct answer is option B here. Next question. What does the next question say? The failure of New Coke. The company learned that tested and tried strategies are essential for success. No. Surveys and data calibration are sheer waste of time. No. Consumer change brand preferences too frequently. No, this could not be the answer. Changes in consumer habits should not be taken for granted. Correct answer is option D. If you think that new product would change a consumer habit, so no, this won't happen. Next question, what for the accomplishment of project Steve Jobs, option A, propagates an approach that is similar to Benjamin Franklin. No. Suggest an approach that is different from Benjamin Franklin. Could be the answer. Believe that the main control is in the hands of customer. No, this was of Bill Gates. Correct answer is option B, that it was very much different from that of Benjamin Franklin. Next question. The dash in consumer is the capricious weather refers to the dash demands of the customers. So whether it is onomatopoeia and consumer is the capricious weather. Onomatopoeia means when there are sound imitating words. So it was not there. Just cut it out. Second, the simile consumer is the capricious weather. For simile, like and as are the essential conditions which was not provided in this line. So we cannot say that it was simile. Metaphor could be there and anaphora was not there, because anaphora does not mean that consumer is the capricious weather. So the correct answer is option C. Metaphor was there, refers consumer is the capricious weather, refers to the wavering demands of the customers would be the correct answer. So the correct answer to this question is option C here. Next question, what does the next passage says? So the next passage is about, since the worldwide inoculation process is going strong, vaccine diplomacy has become a hot topic. In their quest for ensuring vaccine security, a report by the New York Times based on the data on vaccine contracts compiled by Duke University shows that the advance purchase contracts made by some advanced countries for potential vaccines could vaccinate their population many times. So what it is saying, that there is a diplomacy going on vaccines, and in their quest for ensuring vaccine security, every country wants that wants to have vaccine security for their country, so that none of them is left unvaccinated, and that's why vaccine diplomacy is going on. And the New York Times based a report by New York Times says that data on vaccine contracts compiled by Duke University shows that advance purchase is being made by the countries by some advanced countries for potential vaccines would vaccinate their population, that such advanced purchases are made by advanced countries that could vaccinate their countries, that could vaccinate their population many a times. The European Union 2 times, the United States and UK 4 times, the Canada 6 times. The expectation that early vaccination will bring back normalcy and required push to the economic growth fueled many advanced countries to engage in vaccine battles. So because they want to just revive their economy, because they want to just battle to just shield their nation from this COVID, they want that there should be enough vaccine for us in our country to have a vaccine security for its citizens. But it is saying that because of this thing, there is actually a vaccine battle that is going on, the arguments of public good, and good global cooperation have gone out of the window now. It means those people, those countries who vouched for this thing, that there should be globalization, we should help each other, each country must be helpful to other country, that thing has gone out of the window. It means they have avoided that notion basically. While advanced countries have turned their back on the need of the poor countries to access COVID-19 vaccines, India has displayed empathy to their needs. What is it saying? That advanced countries have turned their back on the need of the poor. It means they are ignoring the poor countries basically to access COVID-19 vaccines. India displayed empathy to their needs. It means India is helping these countries. India has taken a position that a significant percentage of approved doses will be permitted for exports. Those vaccines which are approved would be exported. A significant percent of those doses would be exported to other countries, while its export to neighboring countries will be taken under grant mode. Under grant mode, initial shipments of vaccine to least developed countries will be free of cost. So to the neighboring country, there will be a grant that would be given to this to India, but the vaccines to the least developed country would be free of cost. Means no charges were taken by India. And shipments of vaccine from India have already started reaching different parts of the developing world. While India is in its first phase of vaccination to cover healthcare workers, India was in the first phase when he was exporting this vaccine to other countries. So he was in first phase to vaccinate the healthcare workers, and exports from India are helping other countries also in initiating this phase 1 of their vaccination program, a gesture well appreciated globally. So the author is basically admiring India here, that the initiative that is taken by India when no other developed countries were taking it. So that's why the author is admiring India here. In a democracy, one can expect the backlash of sending vaccine abroad without vaccinating its population. So huge backlash, or you can say huge some of the people might go against India, that why are you sending our vaccines to other countries when our population is also not vaccinated. So it could prove a backlash also. Nevertheless, India's approach only reinforces the need of having coordinated global efforts in bringing COVID-19 under control. Reinforces means strengthen. Reinforces simply means strengthen. So it is saying that it was just a reinforcement, or it is just an approach to have a coordinated global effort to bring COVID under control. This response manifests India's unstinted commitment, means undwindling commitment to global development, and has consolidated its name. It means and has strengthened its name in the world's pharmacy. The attitude of India towards vaccinating the populations in the poorer country has generated discussion in the richer countries about the necessity for more proactive measures to roll out vaccine for the developing countries. So India was basically the initiator here that has led to the discussion among the richer countries, among the developed countries, that they need to have proactive measure, passionately active or energetic measure to roll out vaccine. It means to give out, to grant the vaccines to the developing nations also. So this was the whole passage about the vaccination program that was going on. So just solving the question that follows. The first question says, which of the following best describes the purpose of this passage? So passage का purpose कौन describe कर रहा है? Option A, to encourage vaccine nationalism and discourage global cooperation. No. To discourage vaccine nationalism and encourage global cooperation could be the answer. To encourage poor countries and discourage advanced countries. No. To encourage India to provide vaccine to poor nation. No. The correct answer is to discourage vaccine nationalism and encourage global cooperation. Next question, the term inoculation process is used in the passage means. Inoculation का मतलब क्या होता है? Production and distribution of vaccines, global struggle for vaccines, pharmaceutical production of vaccines, or option D, artificial inducing immunity. Inoculation का मतलब something that is inoculated, something that is induced, and that is option D, artificially inducing immunity. Next question that is there, advanced purchase contracts of vaccine by developed countries are premised on hopes that, it means are based on the hopes that, कि एडवांस परचेसेस क्यों करे थे कंट्रीज ने, एडवांस कंट्रीज में. Option A, vaccination will restore normalcy and thirst economic recovery could be the answer. Option B, bring back power to the nation. Option C, vaccination would promote global well-being and growth. Vaccination will protect the health of the world. तो यहाँ पर advanced vaccination क्यों किया था? That was already mentioned in the process here, that advanced vaccination was done in order to restore normalcy and thirst economic recovery. वैक्सीनेशन जो है वो इसलिए किया गया था ना कि नॉर्मलसी रिस्टोर हो जाए और जो इकोनॉमिक रिकवरी है वो बढ़ जाए. सो दैट्स व्हाई वैक्सीनेशन वाज डन. ऑप्शन A is the correct answer. Now question 14, the author cautions that India's approach in vaccine distribution may have negative repercussions among people from advanced countries, people from poor countries, people from developing countries. No, backlash किससे आती? खुद की ही country से आती. तो people from India only would have held the repercussions for India. Last question that follows this passage, among sustainable development goals, the third goal reads, ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages. Which of the following sentences from the passage reflects the reversal of this sustainable development goal? Sustainable development goal कहता है कि हमको एक हेल्दी लाइफ इंश्योर करनी है और सभी के लिए वेल-बीइंग प्रमोट करना है, चाहे वो किसी भी एज का हो. तो यहाँ पर ये बोल रहा है कि इनमें से कौन सी लाइन जो है वो इसके अकॉर्डिंग है. द आर्ग्यूमेंट्स ऑफ पब्लिक गुड एंड ग्लोबल कोऑपरेशन हैव गॉन आउट ऑफ द विंडो, जो इसके अगेंस्ट है, दैट रिफ्लेक्ट्स द रिवर्सल ऑफ दिस एसडीजी. सो यहाँ पर ऑप्शन ए, दैट आर्ग्यूमेंट ऑफ पब्लिक गुड एंड ग्लोबल कोऑपरेशन हैव गॉन आउट ऑफ द विंडो, ये इसके एकदम ऑपोजिट है. दिस कुड बी द आंसर. ऑप्शन बी, एडवांस कंट्रीज हैव टर्न्ड देयर बैक ऑन द नीड ऑफ पुअर कंट्रीज, दिस कुड आल्सो बी द आंसर. Option C, advanced purchase contracts made by some advanced countries for potential vaccines would vaccinate their population many times. Instead of having sufficient vaccine for a single time inoculation, they have just stored the vaccine for they have just stored the vaccine that is not that is above their sufficiency or above adequacy. So you can say that the correct answer to this question is option D, all of the above are reverse of this sustainable development goals. Next passage that was there in your in question paper was, following the transition to democracy with the inauguration of Nelson Mandela as the president of 1994, South Africa was faced with the task of dealing with its past as well as undertaking some action to deal with structural social injustice. The Truth and Reconciliation Committee, heralded as the most ambitious and organized attempt to deal with the crimes of the past regime through the concept of truth, came into force on 19 July 1995 in South Africa, emerging as a political strategy to acknowledge past suffering while promoting a future based on the concerns of social justice. So what is this passage about? The passage is saying that after a transition to democracy, the inauguration of Nelson Mandela has become a president in 1994, and he has, in order to deal with its past means the racism that was there, that was prevalent at that time in Africa. So in order to deal with that, in order to deal with those people who were suffered because of this particular thing, so he has just mended, or you can say he has just framed Truth and Reconciliation Committee. That was heralded. Heralded means that was indicated. Heralded means indicated, considered as the most ambitious and great and organized attempt to deal with the crimes of past regime. Regime means past authority. through the concept of truth came into force on 1995 in South Africa, emerging as a political strategy to acknowledge past suffering while promoting a future based on concerns of social justice. So what was the main aim of this committee was to acknowledge the truth that was from the past regime, and that the concerns of social justice, promoting a future based on the concerns of social justice. सबको social justice मिले, इसके ऊपर हमको एक build करना है future, उस चीज़ को लेकर the rule of law and reconciliation, the committee had struggled to fulfill its objective. Although the TRC incorporated these broader concerns into the mandate of its 3 subcommittees. So यहाँ पर जो broader concerns थे TRC के, it has made 3 subcommittees for that. First was they disregarded in practice. Now, however, they disregarded in practice these subcommittees which reflected the concerns for human rights in violation. First committee was first committee dealt with human rights violation. Second committee dealt with amnesty, and third committee dealt with reparation and rehabilitation. Amnesty means that if you would acknowledge, then we would just forgive your trials and the crimes you have done against the government. That is called as amnesty. Were not coupled with some form of social transformation. So all these 3 goals were not coupled with some form of social transformation. So they were not coupled. It means they were not able to have some social transformation. The public transition from apartheid established through a negotiated settlement rather than a revolutionary process. Now यहाँ पर TRC का जो basic मुद्दा था that they would just the public transition from apartheid established through a negotiated settlement, कि जो public है apartheid से जो है थोड़ा ऊपर उठेंगे या एक बहुत ही अच्छा transformation आएगा. There would be a social transformation that wasn't there, but the public transition from apartheid established कि भाई apartheid से हमको ऊंचा उठना है, ये एक revolutionary process होने की बजाय it had become a negotiated process. Negotiated process means that there were negotiations between the people and the government basically. Frame the commission's power. Shaped by the historical context of this particular transition, TRC was careful not to rock the structural boat. It means TRC जो already structure बना हुआ था, the TRC was not basically compelling, the TRC was not attempting to just disturb this boat, to just disturb this structure that was already there on which the society stands. Now it means that it was not just finding the root causes, the underlying causes that was there in the apartheid, that was there in the past regime, but it was just trying to find a negotiation process rather than a transformatory or a revolutionary process. Now, rather than pursuing truth and justice, an integrated feature of social transformation, rather than pursuing truth and justice, truth plus justice both, that is a feature of social transformation. The commissioners and to a greater extent the government of South Africa maintained an agenda that avoided a challenge to the status quo. It means they were not actually ready basically to just challenge what was prevailing. Now, a focus on restorative justice was taken by commission with an emphasis based on mechanisms to restore victims and survivors. So, एक restorative justice वाला procedure follow किया गया ताकि by the commission that with an emphasis placed on mechanisms ताकि जो victims है और जो survivors हैं उनको हम restore कर सके through reparation policy, state-led acknowledgement of suffering. State-led acknowledgement of suffering, that if you would acknowledge what you have suffered and a condemnation together with a transformation and of the system that implemented such widespread form of abuse. अगर आप acknowledge करेंगे जो आपने suffer किया है, जो insult आपने सही है, जिस तरह से आपको condemn किया गया है, together with a transformation of a system, और ये बताओगे कि भाई ये system ने किस तरह से उस चीज़ को transform किया है, such widespread form of abuse. with the transformation of the system that implemented, जिसकी वजह से वो system जिसकी वजह से हमको इतना झेलना पड़ा, ये चीज़ जब widespread होगी तो यहाँ पर क्या बोला है, that through reparations policy, state-led acknowledgement of suffering and a condemnation together with the transformation of the system that implemented such widespread form of अब्यूज़, के भाई उस सिस्टम से जो ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन हुआ है, जिसने इतनी अब्यूज़ करा है, इसका मतलब जिसने इतना परेशान किया है, जिसकी वजह से हमको इतनी ट्रबल हुई है, जब आप इस चीज़ को एक्नॉलेज करोगे देन द विक्टिम्स एंड सर्वाइवर्स वुड बी restored through reparation policy. Now the priority of changing the apartheid condition of gross inequality, of serious inequality and oppression provided a backdrop to the approval of the TRC by those who had suffered. Now the priority of changing by apartheid को change करने की जो इनकी priority है, with that of condition of gross inequality and oppression, with the conditions of gross inequality and oppression basically provided a backdrop to the approval of TRC. TRC को जिस चीज़ के लिए approve किया गया था उसने वो नहीं की, rather because of it a gross inequality and oppression as a condition has developed, so it had become more difficult to accept with the provision of amnesty to those who have undertaken violations. इसका मतलब more difficult to accept was the provision of amnesty. Amnesty का provision जो है वो और ज़्यादा difficult था for those who have undertaken violations of human rights. The process placed amnesty of violations as a carrot to perpetrators in exchange. तो यहाँ पर amnesty जो है वो एक तरह से amnesty of violations, इसका मतलब क्या है कि आपके अगेंस्ट अगर कोई केस है तो केस वापस ले लिया जाएगा गवर्नमेंट की तरफ से. ये चीज़ को कैरेट बनाकर जो है परपेट्रेटर्स को बोला गया कि भाई आप जो है अपनी पूरी स्टोरी सुनाएंगे, यू हैव टू एक्सचेंज योर फुल स्टोरी एंड देन एमनेस्टी विल बी प्रोवाइडेड टू यू with the stick of prosecution for those who did not came forward, and those people who were not willing to tell their story, who were not willing to share their story, then they were prosecuted for then they were prosecuted. It means that their the convictions that was there, or you can say the case, the trials that was there on them would not be pardoned basically. So this was the whole passage about apartheid and how the TRC commission was failed basically. Now the questions that follows, the first question, the status quo used means previously popular opinions, already existing conditions, strategies of government, and option D, following a set agenda. Status quo already means the current situation. The recent situation is referred to as status quo. So the correct answer is already existing conditions means status quo. Next question. What does the next question say is, which of the following best describes the tone of the author? What is the tone of the author here? So option A, whether it is optimistic. Option B, whether it is threatening. Option C, whether it is compassionate. Or option D, whether it is critical. So यहाँ पर the author, the tone of the author is basically, you can say, was not optimistic, it was not full of life, it was not full of joy or anything that is positive. Threatening नहीं थी. Compassionate was also not the correct answer. The correct answer was option D, critical. The author was critical about TRC. The author criticized TRC for not holding or for not upholding the basis on which TRC was issued or on which TRC was established. Now next question, which of the following is the broader concern of TRC? To deal with the crimes of past regime, to acknowledge past suffering, to emerge as a political strategy for reconciliation of rule of law, or to promote a future based on the concern of the social justice. So here यहाँ पर क्या बोल रहा है, which of the following is not the broader term, which of the following is not the broader term of TRC, broader concern of TRC. So broader concern क्या नहीं था? To acknowledge past suffering, ये तो बिल्कुल था. To deal with the crimes of past regime through a concept of truth, this was also there. To promote a future based on the concern of social justice, this was also there. The correct answer is option C. To emerge as a political strategy for reconciliation of rule of law was not the purpose or concern of TRC. Next question, which of the following statement is least likely to be inferred from the passage? इनमें से किस question को जो है हम passage से infer, किस option को हम passage से infer नहीं कर सकते? Option A, the TRC ignored some of the broad concerns. Option D, the subcommittees of TRC lacked an agenda of social transformation. Option C, the TRC made earnest means serious efforts. The TRC made serious efforts to protect human rights. And option D, the TRC lacked the desire and strength to challenge the prevailing conditions. So TRC ignored some of the broader concerns mentioned in the passage. The subcommittees of TRC lacked an agenda of social transformation. This was there in the passage कि भाई यहाँ पर उनका जो सोशल ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन का जो एजेंडा था वो उन्होंने नहीं अपना के उन्होंने एक नेगोशिएशन प्रोसेस जो होता है वो शुरू कर दिया. नाउ द टीआरसी मेड अर्नेस्ट प्रोसेस टू प्रोटेक्ट ह्यूमन राइट्स. नो, they haven't made any earnest process. So this is least likely to be inferred from the passage. That's why option C here is the correct one. The TRC lacked the desire and strength to challenge the prevailing condition. Yes, that's why the do not disturb the structural vote. तो वहाँ पर they were not wanting to just challenge the prevailing condition. So this was there in the passage. So D was likely to be observed or likely to be gained from the passage. That's why answer C is the correct answer. Amnesty means option A, severe punishment. Option B, bring legal action. Option C, arrest warrants. And option D, official pardon. Amnesty was like the carrot given to the perpetrators. अगर कोई चीज़ कैरेट है इसका मतलब उसका बेनिफिट होना चाहिए. अगर हम बोल रहे हैं सिवियर पनिशमेंट इसका मतलब वो नहीं होगा. ब्रिंग लीगल एक्शन नहीं होना चाहिए. ऑफ अरेस्ट वारंट्स ये तो सब अपोजिट होंगे. सो करेक्ट आंसर इज ऑप्शन डी, दैट इज ऑफिशियल पार्डन. Next passage that was there. I hope I haven't missed any question. Okay. Next question that was there. Next passage that was there. Last passage that was there in the question. Second last passage that was there in the question paper. So in the domain of education, the current pandemic has made three things clear. It has proved beyond any doubt that we need schools, irrespective of which country one talks about. Schools, students, parents want school to open and function in full glory. It means they want the schools to be functioning, their schools to be continuing in their full glory. It means school जैसे खुलती है, जैसे open होती है normally, सारी strength होती है student की. It want that all of us wanted the same at that time with appropriate precaution. Secondly, it has shown that technology may prove to be useful in education if it is employed thoughtfully. Again, it is about technology and school. Now, random surfing of the internet may lead to collection of pieces that do not add up to any meaning. It means when we are randomly surfing internet, then it would make us to accumulate irrelevant piece of informations. As Noam Chomsky says, you cannot pursue any kind of inquiry without a relatively clear framework of what is directing your search and helping you to choose what is significant and what is not. Moreover, it means that you should frame a structure of what should our research be directed towards. It means that you should make directions clear in your head that we should be searching for this information. Now, moreover, that there cannot be any hegemonic techno-managerial solutions to the linguistic and cultural heterogeneity of students. Now, moreover, there cannot be any hegemonic means leading. Hegemonic means leading technological solution to the linguistic and cultural heterogeneity. Heterogeneity means different types. It's called as heterogeneity of students. Technology must help us to respect individual, peer group and community needs and aspirations. Technology must be beneficial to all of us. Thirdly, convergence of the efforts of the public, civil society and private enterprise to take place if we wish technology to meaningfully mediate between schools, home and particularly among underprivileged group. It means that all the public society, the civil society and the private enterprise must collaborate in order to mediate between technology and those students who are underprivileged. Now, the concept, structure and functioning of a school collegiate should not be trivialized. What is meant by trivialized? Means insignificant. It must not be considered insignificant. functioning of school must not be considered insignificant in any type of way. This institution has survived since ancient time. ये जो स्कूल का इंस्टीट्यूशन है, कॉलेज का इंस्टीट्यूशन है, ये कब से चलता आ रहा है? In spite of proposal of de-schooling of various kinds, many of the people from in ancient time have supported that de-schooling must be there, but it is true that schools to a great extent perpetuate the status quo, and the Ivan Illich observed encourage consumerism and obedience to authority. So Ivan Illich basically said that schools encourage consumerism and obedience to authority. It means that it teaches obedience to authority. It teaches to follow the rules. It teaches to follow the authorities, to be loyal towards the authorities. And consumerism, it means that it just tells us to be materialistic basically in some way or the other. It means that if you are a materialistic person, if you have all the material success with you, then it means that you are a very successful person. Now, but it is also true that those who produce some of the most revolutionary movements in the history, including quantum jumps in the knowledge. Quantum jumps means a very great jump or a very great thing that is achieved in knowledge, also went to school. Now, it is just debunking the myth that Ilanovich has said. So, it is saying that those who have made very much success in this field of knowledge, they have also went to school. Now, the kind of web of learner Illich imagines may in fact have its roots in school. There are also people who trivialize schools for the kind of investment they demand in terms of space, building, teachers, libraries, labs, and other infrastructure. So Illich says that the kind of learners that Illich imagines basically might have had its roots from school. It means that they might have also went to school sometime. Now there are also people, कुछ ऐसे लोग भी होते हैं जो है स्कूलिंग को वर्थलेस मानते हैं या स्कूलिंग को जो है इतना महत्व नहीं देते हैं, because for the kind of investment it demands, the demands that it has, that is, it demands of space, it demands of teachers, libraries, and labs and other infrastructure. One thing you never forget is the school you went to, friends you made there, and the kind of teachers who taught you, the kind of teachers who loved you, the kind you mocked at with friends you recollect nostalgically, the sports and other co-curricular activities you took part in. Some of you may have still preserved your school blazers, trophies and photographs with a sense of joy. So it is just basically a nostalgic kind of paragraph here that the author is making, trying to make us remind of all those things that we have had in our schools. It is important to see school holistically. It means comprehensively, as a whole. Holistically means comprehensively. It is not a set of atomic items of rooms, libraries, assembly halls, canteen and playgrounds. It is all of these, but in symbiotic relation with each other. Symbiotic means in a mutually beneficial relation with each other, the contours of which, contours means the outlines, the shadow, the reminiscent, the reminders of which are often far too obvious and often simply mysterious. So this was the passage about schooling, de-schooling, internet, how to use internet and technology for schooling of those who are underprivileged, that was discussed in this passage. Now, first question that follows this passage, which one of the following is the author trying to suggest by questioning Noam Chomsky? Technology shall be used in purposely structured manner in education. Could be what the author want. Could be the answer of the question. A relatively clear framework pursues any kind of inquiry. No, this was not the correct answer. Technology help us to choose what is significant and reject what is not significant. This is not technology, it is our mind that helps us. So C is also not the correct answer. Technology must help to respect individual, peer groups and community. No, correct answer is option A here, that the technology must be used structurally. Next question, which of the following is not a premise of author's argument in favor of the need of schools and needs of schools of college and education? So यहाँ पर वो किसके फेवर में नहीं है ऐसा कौन सा स्टेटमेंट है जो स्कूल और कॉलेज के फेवर में नहीं है? स्कूल एंड कॉलेजेस प्रोवाइड अपॉर्चुनिटी फॉर सोशलाइजेशन, इसके फेवर में है. और institution of schools and colleges has shown perseverance. The current pandemic has proved schools, students and parents want schools and colleges. The random surfing of internet may lead to collection of meaningless information. So correct answer is option D, because it is not the premise that school is the need for that it is the need for the hour of school and colleges. Next question, the expression linguistic and cultural heterogeneity means, it simply means linguistic and cultural diversity. Simple, option C. Diversity means heterogeneity. Unity in diversity, there is no such word for unity in this particular phrase. That's why we can say it is just linguistic and cultural diversity. नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन, विच ऑफ द फॉलोइंग इज नॉट द लर्निंग आउटकम फ्रॉम पेंडेमिक? इनमें से कौन सा जो एक लर्निंग आउटकम नहीं है पेंडेमिक के लिए? पेंडेमिक में पेरेंट्स एंड स्कूल स्टूडेंट्स फ्रॉम अराउंड द वर्ल्ड नीड स्कूल्स. टेक्नोलॉजी इज अनडाउटेडली एंड एब्सोल्युटली यूजफुल इन education. Technology may be meaningfully used to mediate between schools and home along the underprivileged groups. So यहाँ पर कौन सी चीज़ है जो कि पेंडेमिक से हम लर्न नहीं कर सकते हैं बेसिकली? सो द करेक्ट आंसर टू दिस क्वेश्चन इज ऑप्शन बी. टेक्नोलॉजी इज अनडाउटेडली एंड एब्सोल्युटली यूजफुल इन एजुकेशन. ये चीज़ हम पेंडेमिक से लर्न नहीं कर सकते हैं. नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन, the expression symbiotic relation means, I've already told you symbiotic relation means mutually beneficial relation. So the correct answer is option C, that mutually beneficial relation is always referred to as symbiotic relationship. Next, last passage. So just read what this passage says. A new report forecasting that India can create million more jobs in the coming years in the gig economy underscores a fundamental shift in the nature of work. Now what is basically gig economy? Gig economy simply means the contractual form of work, the contractual form of jobs, just like Swiggy, Zomato, these are called as gig workers. सो गिग इकोनॉमी के जरिए इंडिया जो है आने वाले सालों में बहुत सारी जॉब्स क्रिएट कर सकती है. अंडरस्कोर्स अ फंडामेंटल शिफ्ट इन द नेचर ऑफ वर्क. सो यहाँ पर इट अंडरस्कोर्स अ फंडामेंटल शिफ्ट, इट मीन्स अ बेसिक शिफ्ट इन द नेचर ऑफ वर्क. पहले जहाँ पर लोग रेगुलर वर्क करना प्रेफर करते थे, अब वहाँ पर लोग कॉन्ट्रैक्चुअल वर्क करना प्रेफर कर रहे हैं. वाइल ऑटोमेशन स्वेप्ट थ्रू फैक्ट्री फ्लोज एंड BPOs reduced manpower requirements, e-commerce, ride-hailing and food delivery apps, streaming media and fintech have created lakhs of temporary jobs in the service sector. So यहाँ पर ये क्या बता रहा है कि जो क्योंकि ऑटोमेशन आ गया है, क्योंकि टेक्नोलॉजी ड्रिवन हो गई है सोसाइटी, तो कई जगह पे मैन पावर रिड्यूस हो गई है और कई जगह जहाँ पर मैन पावर इंक्रीज हुई है वो है टेम्पररी जॉब्स में. Although the jury is still out in the quality of life accorded by such gigs. लेकिन यहाँ पर अभी भी जजमेंट हो रहा है कि भाई ये क्वालिटी ऑफ लाइफ कैसी ग्रांट करते हैं अकॉर्डेड बाय सच गिग्स. ये गिग्स किस तरह की लाइफ जीते हैं, किस तरह की क्वालिटी ऑफ लाइफ जीते हैं. फिर द सोशल सिक्योरिटी बेनिफिट्स दे अकॉर्ड, किस तरह की सोशल सिक्योरिटी बेनिफिट्स देती है गिग इकोनॉमी इनको. रिकॉल दिस इनफॉर्मलाइजेशन ऑफ जॉब स्टार्टेड मच अर्लियर. ऑथर ये चीज़ भी याद दिला रहा है कि ये जो इनफॉर्मलाइजेशन हुआ है अभी, मतलब कि एक तो फॉर्मल जॉब्स होती है, एक इनफॉर्मल जॉब्स होती है जिनको हम टेम्पररी जॉब्स कहते हैं, ये बहुत पहले हो गया था. अ रिपोर्ट बाय बॉस्टन Consulting Group and Michaels and Susan Dell Foundation predicts 90 million flexi and gig jobs in a decade from 8 million now, contributing transactions valued at more than $250 billion and an additional 1.25% to India's GDP. कि इन गिग जॉब्स की वजह से जो है $250 बिलियन का जो है ट्रांजैक्शन होता है, उससे भी ज़्यादा का ट्रांजैक्शन होता है, उसी के साथ एडिशनल 1.25% जो है वो इंडिया की GDP में एड ऑन होता है. ऑब्वियसली टेक्नोलॉजिकल इवोल्यूशंस आर हार्ड टू प्रेडिक्ट. A decade ago, few, if any, had divined these new jobs. Accepting change as a sole constant, it is equally critical to create a socio-economic framework that can support such jobs. कि हावेवर हमको नहीं पता है, हमको पता है चेंज जो है वो इनएविटेबल है, बट चेंज के साथ साथ एक हमको सोशियो इकोनॉमिक फ्रेमवर्क भी फ्रेम करना पड़ेगा या बनाना पड़ेगा जो इस तरह की जॉब्स को सपोर्ट कर सके. Expecting startups fueled by venture capital and presently unprofitable to treat gig workers as regular employees isn't practical. जो startups हैं that are fueled by venture capital, that it means that have investments and presently unprofitable, लेकिन अभी unprofitable नहीं है, and जो कि अभी अनप्रॉफिटेबल हैं, आर प्रेजेंटली अनप्रॉफिटेबल, टू ट्रीट गिग वर्कर्स एज रेगुलर एम्प्लॉयज इजंट प्रैक्टिकल. वो अगर गिग वर्कर्स को रेगुलर एम्प्लॉयज की तरह ट्रीट करे तो ये चीज़ प्रैक्टिकल नहीं है. सच मूव्स कुड इम्पीड इनोवेशन एंड इन्वेस्टमेंट. इस तरह के मूव्स जो हैं इट कुड इम्पीड, इम्पीड मीन्स हैम्पर, it could impede innovation and investment. But if central and state government could deliver in areas, लेकिन central और state government could deliver in areas of health and public education, insurance and food security, anxieties generated by unsteady, irregular employment can be managed better. लेकिन अगर जो state और central government कुछ help करे तो ये जो irregular employment की वजह से जो anxieties है, जो fears है, उन चीज़ों में काफ़ी help मिलेगी. Last year's nationwide lockdown, when the suddenly unemployed migrant workers panicked and bolted, untrusting the promises of governments to take care of them, served out this lesson in poignant detail, in very specific detail, in very intense detail. So what it is trying to say कि जो last time जो लॉकडाउन हुआ था उसकी वजह से जो हसल क्रिएट हुआ है बेसिकली, उसकी वजह से हमको ये लेसन जो है वो बहुत ही अटमोस्ट डिटेल में मिला है. Now the gig economy does not promise flexibility and improved choices. Does promise flexibility and improved choices. ये इकोनॉमी की वजह से फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी मिलती है, जॉब के अंदर एक फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी रहती है और चॉइसेस भी अच्छी है वुमेन के लिए, पार्ट टाइम वर्कर्स के लिए. Every technological revolutions till date has effaced some jobs and created plentiful others. कई टेक्नोलॉजिकल रिवॉल्यूशन जो हुए उसने अभी तक यही किया है कि कुछ जॉब्स जो है उसने ख़त्म कर दी है, इट हैज़ एफेस्ड सम जॉब्स एंड क्रिएटेड प्लेंटिफुल अदर्स, और कुछ जॉब्स उसने और बहुत सारी जॉब्स जो है वो क्रिएट कर दी है. There is room for optimism in this rapidly emerging tech mediated world. हमेशा एक optimistic thought रखना चाहिए, और especially in the rapidly emerging tech mediated world, जहाँ ये जो टेक मीडिएटेड वर्ल्ड है उसमें भी हमको ऑप्टिमिस्टिक रहना पड़ेगा, बट ओनली अपॉन स्ट्रेंथनिंग द सपोर्ट ऑफ एजुकेशनल एंड हेल्थ इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर. लेकिन तभी हो पाएगा जब एजुकेशनल और हेल्थ इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर जो है गिग वर्कर्स के लिए सुधर जाएगा. सो दिस वाज द पैसेज अबाउट द एंग्जाइटीज एंड हाउ दीज गिग वर्कर्स एंग्जाइटीज कैन बी डेल्ट विथ very effectively if the government would do something for these gig workers. Now coming to the first question that was there, the report by Boston Consulting Group and Michael and Susan Dell Foundation predicts massive rise in gig jobs in the decade, predicts fundamental shift in the nature of the works, predicts a massive rise in the GDP, or all of the above. The correct answer is it predicts a massive rise in the gig jobs in a decade. के इस decade में gig jobs जो है वो इतनी ज़्यादा बढ़ गई है कि उसका revenue जो generate हुआ है that alone is $250 billion. Next question, what does the next question says? Which of the following can be inferred as a caution by the author? सावधानी की तरह इनमें से कौन सा statement है? Option A, central and state government must ensure management of public health, education, insurance and food security. Anxieties of gig workers, expecting treatment of gig workers as regular employees could impede innovation and investment. Option C, if educational and health infrastructure support is not strengthened, gig economy will fail. And option D, it is critical to create socio-political framework that can support gig jobs. So basically what it is trying to say कि कौन सी चीज़ क्वेश्चन की तरह यूज़ हो रही है, तो क्वेश्चन की तरह एक ही चीज़ यूज़ हो रही है कि एक्सपेक्टिंग ट्रीटमेंट ऑफ गिग वर्कर्स एज रेगुलर एम्प्लॉयज़, कि अगर हम लोगों ने एक्सपेक्ट कर लिया गिग वर्कर्स को कि भाई हम उनको ट्रीट कर सकते हैं रेगुलर एम्प्लॉयज़ की तरह, तो यहाँ पर इनोवेशन भी हैम्पर होएगा, उसके साथ इन्वेस्टमेंट भी हैम्पर होएगी. इट कुड इम्पीड इनोवेशन एंड investment. Next question, in the context of passage, which of the following best describes gig economy? Passage के अकॉर्डिंग इनमें से कौन सा जो है गिग इकोनॉमी को बेहतर तरीके से समझा सकता है? Informally structured economy with skill based short term or freelance labor market, could be the answer. A fundamental shift in the nature of a work in the economy, no. Economy characterized by startups, fueled by venture capital, these are not called as gig economy. The gig economy is the informally structured economy with skill based short term, जो short term के लिए होती है, temporary होती है, freelance होती है, that is called as gig economy. Next question, the tone of the passage here is whether it is cynical, whether it is critical, whether it is scornful or whether it is sanguine. cynical है, critical है, sanguine है या फिर scornful है. तो यहाँ पर लास्ट में अगर हमने देखा तो लास्ट में सैंग्विन ज़्यादा नज़र आया, क्योंकि उसने बोला कि हमें एक ऑप्टिमिज्म के लिए रूम होना चाहिए. देयर इज़ ऑलवेज अ रूम फॉर ऑप्टिमिज्म. इट मीन्स दैट वी शुड बी ऑप्टिमिस्टिक दैट गिग इकोनॉमी हैज़ अ future. So we can say that it was a sanguine passage. Last question of the day. According to the passage, which of the following comes as a concern related to gig economy? क्या concern है gig economy से related? Temporary nature of work जो है वो एक concern है नहीं, वो तो एक benefit है वुमेन्स के लिए और पार्ट टाइम वर्कर्स के लिए. Lack of education और health infrastructure, ये जो है ये एक concern है. The quality of life and the social security, this is also a concern. But जो ऑप्शन सी है दैट इज एनकम्पासिंग द लैक ऑफ एजुकेशन एंड हेल्थ इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर ऑल्सो इन द क्वालिटी ऑफ लाइफ. क्वालिटी ऑफ लाइफ की बात करें तो इसी के अंदर आ जाएगा क्वालिटी, लैक ऑफ एजुकेशनल एंड हेल्थ इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर. सो वी कैन से द करेक्ट आंसर टू दिस क्वेश्चन इज ऑप्शन सी. So the purpose of solving and analyzing this CLAT 2021 paper was that you know how to approach for the passage, how to read the passage, what all things that we should keep in mind, कहाँ पर ऑथर क्या कहना चाह रहा है, क्वेश्चन उस चीज़ के लिए किस तरीके से पोर्ट्रे किया जा सकता है, किस तरह से फ्रेम किया जा सकता है. यू हैव टू कीप ऑल दीज थिंग्स इन माइंड. हाउ टू ऑप्ट आउट अदर ऑप्शंस दैट आर देयर इन द क्वेश्चन. कोई भी क्वेश्चन में जो ऑप्शंस है, जो करेक्ट आंसर के अलावा जितने भी ऑप्शंस है वो हम किस तरह से ऑप्ट आउट कर सकते हैं. आई होप नाउ यू पीपल हैव known this particular thing. So with this I would like to just wind up the analysis for CLAT 2021 and hope for the best for you people. Thank you.